Hello, my name is Vanessa Lay, and I am part of the Skoll Foundation team. I'm excited to welcome you to this Skoll World Forum session, The Future of Women and Girls' Rights in Afghanistan. We're ecstatic to have an esteemed group of speakers here to learn from and engage with. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to Hibaaq, CEO of Karama, to take off the session.
It's such a pleasure and honor to be here at the heart of the Skoll community to hear a panel of incredible Afghan women discuss the future of women and girls' rights in Afghanistan. Last August, the world only watched as the Taliban swept into Kabul, overturning the government of Afghanistan. It was the latest chapter in the story of Afghanistan that has become so very internationalized. Afghanistan's story has unwillingly become part of the Cold War, the rise of extremism, the so-called war on terror, and crises including COVID and climate change. It is well beyond time that we re-entered Afghan women and girls in our understanding of Afghanistan. We need to be reintroduced to that country's history, its present situation, and its future through a gender lens. So I'm very grateful to Skoll for giving me the opportunity for convening a true, brilliant, and multi-generational panel of Afghan women to explore the issue. The need for recentering the discussion on Afghanistan has never felt more vital. The American-led NATO intervention was one of the longest and most ruinously expensive in modern history, and yet in 20 years, it feels that so little was learned about Afghanistan. We don't have to look far for evidence. The horrors and atrocities in Russia's war in Ukraine have provoked shock and disgust across the world. Yet I have lost count of the number of Western commentators who have expressed their disbelief by suggesting that such appalling violence and degradation are what they might expect to see somewhere like Afghanistan, not in European countries. The dreams and ambitions of Afghans to live in peace and democracy, to enjoy the benefits of education and economic opportunity are every bit as real and valuable as ours. The horrors and destruction of war are as appalling in Ukraine as they are in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Yemen, in Myanmar, in Tigray, and in so many places across the world. We need to respect and recognize the dignity of all those affected by conflict, and we especially need to understand the particular way that women and girls are affected by the conflict and crisis. To help that process, I am delighted to introduce our panel today. Sakena Yacoobi is President and CEO of the Afghan Institute of Learning, which provides health and education service to the thousands of Afghans. Arso is a director at the Yalda Hakim Foundation, which supports the education and professional advancement of young Afghan women. And Suwair Sultan, who was a student at the American University of Afghanistan. Welcome to all of you, and welcome to our audience here at the Skoll World Forum. So I would like to start the first question to Sakena Yacoobi, who is of the Afghan Institute of Learning, which supports some 360 women's centers across Afghanistan. Sakena, and I had the pleasure of visiting her and in her school. Sakena, your organization embraces an education-first model and supports women-led centers that are still operating. What are the challenges in running these centers now? Dr. Sakena?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. First of all, I would like to thank the Skoll World Forum, and also I would like to thank all the panelists. I really appreciate to be in this panel, and especially in such a time that we all are in crisis. The whole world is in crisis. Afghan Institute of Learning have been working in Afghanistan and also Pakistan almost for 31 years. For 31 years, we are trying to really educate the young women of Afghanistan and try to empower them to have a sustainable life. As you all know about Afghanistan, Afghanistan have been in war for almost 40 years. For 40 years, the women of Afghanistan, the children of Afghanistan have suffered. I am not going to go into this for a long introduction of the organization of what's happening to Afghanistan. I think that today is a very crisis because our country, our nation are in crisis. You know that right now in Afghanistan, there is economical problem, there is a social problem, there is a political problem, and there is a gender equality problem. And when you look at in that lens and you see what's happening, I think that the main reason that all these things are happening is lack of education. A society that is, who are traditional society, who are lacking education, who are not able to get education in all aspects of life, and that is the problem that they are facing. No matter how much everybody is trying to help the people of Afghanistan as a nation, I think the focus should be education. And that's the reason AIL have been focusing into education issue and for 31 years. Yes, there is a lot of challenge, there is a lot of barrier, but one thing that I learned through all this experience that no matter which system is coming and which system is going and which system is remaining, we must continuously keep open the door of education. The door of education cannot be closed. One of the reasons that I am really personally making effort as a Skoll awardee, as a Skoll social entrepreneur, as a Skoll somebody who is really bringing a change to this world. I constantly try to, through innovation and through creativity, work through all the system, every system that if it's dictatorship, if it is a system of gender equality issue, if a system of ethnicity, if a system of hierarchy, whatever system is there, we try to concentrate in holistic education and try to keep the door open by being creative, by being able to be flexible, by being able to really continue to educate our young women and young girls. And that's happening today. Today, AIL is working right now on the ground, and we are right now working in every aspect of our program. We work in our health, we work in our education, and we work on our training. As you know, there has been 260 clinic and hospital has been closed inside Afghanistan. The health system is collapsing. The people are sick, the people are dying, the children are malnourished. 19 million people are right now suffering from poverty. 5 million children are suffering from malnutrition. And this is the situation in Afghanistan. And so what we are going to do, the women of Afghanistan have been in front line all the time. The women of Afghanistan are brilliant. Once you give them the opportunity, once you give them the environment, they function very well. As a matter of fact, during this last year and a half, during the quid, the women were in front line. They were the one who trying to help and support healthcare system. And now they are trying to help and support the poverty, try to provide food and clothing and shelter through distribution. Above all those things, I think that also education must be looked into it. We cannot wait that the politician take their place, or the politician fight for chair, or the politician try to speak about this and that. We must continuously, because education is a human right. Education is the right of every child. Every child continuously must be educated. And already we have been disrupting our system of education. Already our future generation, a lot of our young people has been going abroad, have been leaving the country, and we are already disrupting the system of education. We cannot afford to anymore disrupt the system of education. AIL is there to continuously work, no matter what the system is. We are trying to create a curriculum that we can work, separate the boys and the girls from each other. And right now our school is open. Our 362 center are open. Our training session going from one province to the next province operating, because we believe that we must continue work. The work cannot wait. The work cannot wait that the system of banking be open. The system of politician is going to do something different. We are on the road and we are providing service. And that's I wanted to share with you. And I am so glad that you give me the opportunity Afghan Institute of Learning have been reaching 15.5 million people so far through the area of education, health, awareness, and also a lot of skill training. And continuously, we are opening business. As I am talking to you right now, we are expanding program. And instead of condensing program, we are expanding program. During this 8 months that everybody is screaming and dying and everybody doing all kinds of things, we are expanding. We open 3 new clinics. We open 5 new learning centers. And continuously, we are keep developing curriculum that can be taught by distance education, curriculum that can be taught through our TV station, through broadcasting just to the public, how to really teach them from 7th grade to 12th grade, and that they can learn behind the screen. And so that is we are trying to do. And also we are trying to teach people that suffering in war and no suffering, this is something that the only way that you can come together, to work together, to collaborate together, and also through love and compassion. Because if we have this hostility, if we are trying to work through all kinds of ethnic group, and that you are different than me and you, I am different than you, we are not going to achieve that much. The only success that we could bring to our nation is to collaborate and be equal and look at through one gender lens, that all of us human beings and we are all equal, and God created all of us equal. And that's my message to the world today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's really very, very interesting. And I think the beat goes on. And thank you very much for that powerful story. Really appreciate that. The second speaker that we're going to have is Arso. Arso is the director at the Yalda Hakim Foundation, which supports the education and professional advancement of young Afghans. I have my first question, Arso, that I really would like to ask you. First of all, to thank you very, very much for being with us today. And my first question to you is exactly, you have a very interesting story. You decided to go back. You were working at the World Bank and decided to really stop everything and work on Afghanistan. So my first question to you is, what compelled you to do that?
Thank you so much, Hibaaq, for the question, and thank you so much to the Skoll Forum and all of the participants for giving us the opportunity and the platform. Going to your question, I think that...
All right, you have 5 minutes and go for it.
Okay, thank you. So just to jump into your question, watching my country in mid-August burn to the ground, basically, and the people hang off of airplanes looking for some kind of safety and security and a way out. That's what really prompted me to basically drop everything that I was doing. I was working as an investment officer at the World Bank. I took leave and started working on finding a way to help. And the impetus into helping was really, even prior to the crisis, my good friend, the founder, Yalda Hakim, and we set up the foundation, the Yalda Hakim Foundation, to support women's education in Afghanistan. We had a number of scholarships with the American University of Afghanistan, as well as scholarship programs with Oxford University, Georgetown, and Doha, where we were providing opportunities for women to study. Our impetus into getting involved and into the evacuations was we had a number of scholars that we were supporting in Afghanistan, and they were, messaging us and pleading for a way to get out. And this was our jump into that. We started off with evacuating about 110 people to Albania, including the scholars that we had. When we brought them to Albania, it wasn't just about dropping them off here, they have safety. Then we were focused on building a system for them, so building education, building healthcare, building basic safety, so that they're there. The 3 scholars that we had were from the American University of Afghanistan, and we quickly realized there was a lot more students that needed rescuing. And we evacuated another 110 American University of Afghanistan students to the American University of Iraq in Soleimani. One of the brilliant ones you will hear about very shortly, Siwat. So I think it's my reason for getting involved, very, very personal, being an Afghan American. I was 9 years old when I left Afghanistan. It was the first time the Taliban took over, and watching it happen again, and now seeing the devastation that they've caused. It's the only country in the world that doesn't allow women to go to school. It's the only country on the planet. And so it's really hard to sit back and allow that to happen. And through the foundation, we're trying to do everything that we can to make a bit of a dent in Afghanistan at the moment. We're working on a number of advocacy projects. We're working on a number of different education programs with our partners, such as Education Above All in Qatar. We're setting up a scholarship fund for the 110 American University of Afghanistan that we evacuated to Iraq, for them to continue their studies in the US, and hopefully for them to be leaders of Afghanistan in some other way. So we're not giving up on the youth of Afghanistan, and we're not giving up on Afghanistan itself. We're going to do everything that we can to try and provide opportunities to education. And as an Afghan who's had the chance to go to the US and study at some of the best universities and work in some of the best institutions, I feel it's a responsibility, an obligation to step in and try to help, because it wasn't very long ago when my family needed help to escape the brutality of the Taliban that people stepped in. So I think I feel a sense of responsibility and obligation to do what we're doing.
Also the story of the diaspora, that really the diaspora contributes to building the nation. Tell us why it's so critical to support this promising scholars. Just in one or two sentences, yeah.
I think if you look at the age of the scholars, they're the 9/11 generation. They're the generation that have benefited from democracy, from freedom, from the young women that you'll hear from, women's rights. And you see what having a free country can produce over 20 years. This was the efforts of 20 years. And we cannot allow this to go to waste. We cannot allow them to just sit idle. Just because they can't return to Afghanistan today, that doesn't mean we don't have a responsibility to build their capacity and to build them up as future leaders. So when there is a chance to contribute to the world, they're ready for that. And I think as a diaspora, those of us that have left, we contribute to, I'm a very proud American and British citizen, but at the same time, in my heart, I'm an Afghan. And I will do all that I can from the skills and knowledge that I have to help rebuild my country.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we will come back to you. And we all want to hear positive and possibilities to do something in Afghanistan. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ambassador Adila Raz, who was the first woman ambassador to serve as Afghanistan ambassador to the United Nations. And it's such a pleasure, Adila, to talk to you today. And we would love you to share your story with us. It's a very strong story. As a young girl, you grew up under the first rule of the Taliban at a time when young girls were prevented from entering education. Did you ever dream back that one day you would become and represent your country as an ambassador at the international stage? Ambassador Adila?
Thank you, Hibaaq, for giving me the floor. It's such an honor to be among this distinguished and truly inspiring panelists today, speaking on behalf of a woman of Afghanistan. And I'm really grateful to the Skoll World Forum for organizing this panel at this really critical juncture and moment when we're challenged around the world with so many complexities that are arriving in security issues. And of course, Afghanistan is unfortunately still the country that is suffering the heaviest of among all other countries as well. Look, Hibaaq, starting with my story of when that journey for me started 25 years ago. Truly the first time when Taliban came to Afghanistan as a teenager. I was in the country, and it's extremely difficult to describe what I went through, and it's also heartbreaking for me to put myself in the position of those women who are in the country right now, those girls who are right now in the country, and they're denied from going to school, the right to education, the right to dream big, the right to really think beyond the framework of doorsteps and really break that glass ceiling which we all have in our societies and in our countries. And I was there. There were a lot of times. I've shared the stories that initially when I heard for the first time the announcement on the radio at the time when there was no TV that girls cannot go to school. And I felt shattered, and my only hope at the time was a miracle. And as a young teenager, I will wake up in the midnight and start to pray and just wished for a miracle to happen, that I would be able to go to school. Because for me, as an Afghan girl at the time, I just thought that was my door to opportunities, that was my door to change in life, that was my door of hope and aspiration, was education. And like many Afghan girls, I think when we grow up, yes, there are certain constraints that we feel, but education is one of the areas that a lot of time we're encouraged within the family to pursue. So when it's denied, it's heartbreaking. And today, when here we are, 25 years later, and as Arzujan said, the investment that had made in Afghanistan was made in Afghanistan in the last 20 years. The changed society, the society that truly women came in the forefront, and I was one of the examples of those women to be able to represent Afghanistan at the international platform as the first female ambassador of my country at the United Nations, as a deputy foreign minister who traveled around the world and spoke on behalf of the country for the policies and for the people of Afghanistan. It was a moment of honor, and it was a moment of gratitude, and it was a moment of change. Like many other girl would have felt the same way, because I think we had arrived, and I had arrived among many other women with me, breaking that glass ceiling. And we looked to our country where it stood on principles of a constitutional representative democracy, and we all believed in it when we went forward. And today, just seeing that women once again are denied from going to school, it's like reliving those dark days, those dark moments. But one thing I have to say, I think Arzujan mentioned, and as well as Madam Sakena mentioned, is that it's impossible for any society to progress if half of its population is not engaged in its development, in its progress, and it's moving forward. And it's a country with more than 38 million population, about half of them are women. And if the right to education is denied, we already foresee a country that will live in darkness. We will foresee a country that will live and in economic instabilities. So just simply that it could be the strongest and the most important reasons for the regime to consider and to truly acknowledge the change that has happened in Afghanistan. And the second is also that according to Islam, according to the religion, we believe the right to education is the first thing we were learned, and we were taught that it's equally given both to men and women. And we live in a Islamic society. Most of our schools are already gender separated, and it has, as Madam Sakena said, her school has all the right principles and policies in place. But still, if women are told just because they have a different gender and they cannot go to school, I think that will not help us to see a country that will have the recognition by the international community, and a country that we as a woman and as my two daughters will feel that that's the status quo we should adjust. I think we have seen recently and even before that women were in the forefront, and they have already came on the street and they are calling for a change, and that change must happen. My hope and my desire is that this struggle that had started even 25 years ago. It continued in the last 20 years, and it progressed where women came in the forefront, and it won't stop. It will not stop. It's going to move forward. And I do hear especially those sisters who are in Afghanistan, and those young girls, and a lot of disappointments in the struggles that they are facing. But my hope is that the international community will never stop their support to women inside the country, and those who are still fighting, and those who are still struggling for a change. I'm also hoping that the international community, through the engagement they have with Taliban, will continue to pressure Taliban to acknowledge the change in the country, and acknowledge the role of women in Afghanistan, not only for education, but for working as well, because we will never have a prosperous country if women will not be able to contribute in its development. And I'm also hoping that there are various tools that, as the international, as most of us who are here, and we have the resources and the abilities to be the strongest advocates for women inside Afghanistan, and despite of any other challenge that arrives around the world, and atrocities or tragic incidents that happen, I think the unique and the cohesive voice for women in the country should continue and should move forward. And of course, I'm extremely grateful that today is this panel in this forum is one of the examples that you have dedicated to make sure that women of Afghanistan are not forgotten, and their plea and their call for their rights to be respected, to be protected according to Islam. And we have so many Muslim countries around the world that we look up to the examples that we could enhance, and that Afghanistan should not be the only Muslim country in the world that denies Afghan women from their right, the basic right, which is the right to education, the right to live free and open like any other citizen inside the country.
To underline the fact that Islam is not against education. As a matter of fact, the Prophet, peace upon him, said that get your education from India to China in a neutral language. So we know that that is not religion.
Yes.
Islam is a religion that supports education for both. So thank you very much for pointing that out, Ambassador Adila. The final speaker today is Suwar. Suwar, you are Suwar was a former student at American University, and just my first question to you, Suwar, is you're a student in Afghanistan when the Taliban took over last year. Can you talk to us about the day you left?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here, and thank you, Arzujan, for addressing me as a brilliant individual. Well, I left my country in a point when I was preparing for a new phase in my life. I had just graduated from AUAF. I had just taken my transcript from AUAF. I was applying for master's degree in Chevening scholarship and also Fulbright scholarship as an alternative. I was preparing for TOEFL exam, and I was writing a statement of purpose. And for that purpose, I was developing ideas, what I wanted to do in my life, and what I would do after returning to my country. I also had a job as a business development officer in a company which was established by young individuals. It was a place of innovation and creation. Well, it means I already had developed my networks, my personal and professional networks. And using that network, I got internship in Ministry of Industrial and Commerce. Well, I should say that this was not true for me, but it was true for many, many other young individuals before the Taliban came and took the country. Now, coming to your question, when I left the country, I was reflecting on all of these achievements I had gained in the past 20 years and the achievements of all other Afghan girls who gained in the past 20 years. Because it was not easy, it was very challenging. We struggled a lot. And I was also reflecting on how I was leaving behind all of my achievements to the mercy of a stone-aged, barbaric, misogynistic, and violent group. I was initially planning to leave my country for furthering my education, um, but not the way it eventually happened. Well, but now I have the opportunity to continue my education. But what about those other Afghan girls who are still in Afghanistan?
And I know now you are continuing your studies outside of Afghanistan. Just to end in an upbeat in this panel, at least the discussion, I really would like you to tell us about your career aspirations.
Well, initially, my career plan was to return back to my country as I wanted to do my master's degree. I wanted to go back to my country and work on the business literacy side of education. Well, not necessarily only for girls, but both for male and female. As a marketing major, a student, and business development young professional, I had identified the lack of business knowledge among local companies and traditional young entrepreneurs. I wanted to educate the contemporary knowledge of marketing and business value chain to the Afghan local businesses who did not have access to the international market. And as the result, they could not understand international market demand for their product processing, packaging, and marketing. For instance, Afghanistan is one of those countries enriched in handcrafts and agriculture. However, there is no value chain of business through which the relevant products could receive international attention. For example, take the incidents of 2018 as an example. Afghanistan exported 50-ton pine nuts to China, but since the product was not well processed and packaged, China did not pay any money to the traders. And as the result, the exporters company went bankrupt. And also, this incident discouraged other traders to export their products to China. I'm still planning to implement this idea because the economy of Afghanistan is on the verge of collapse. However, the context differs now. The situation is rapidly changing on the ground, but I'm trying to figure out how I would utilize online platforms.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. I think we have to, say thank you for Skoll Foundation, because this is one of the few moments when you have Afghan women actually representing themselves, telling us their own narrative, and in a panel rather than other people speaking for them. So thank you, Skoll. Thank you so much to the panelists. It has been so great to see how engaged the audience has been. So it's my pleasure to take some of their questions. And I think for the four of you, the first question is, what is your biggest fear of the women and girls of Afghanistan? And this could go to the ambassador, to Dr. Sakena, and all of you.
Thank you very much, Hibaaq. First of all, I would like to say that Afghanistan is economically collapsed as it is. And if the people are sick as they are, and if the educational system is disrupted, there is no future for Afghanistan. There is no future. And I don't want to say that the people of Afghanistan, 30 million people are in Afghanistan. What we are doing for the people of Afghanistan, how we are thinking about them. If there is no money going to Afghanistan, how we are going to improve the life of those people, what we are going to do. So my point is that, yes, a lot of issue is coming. Yes, I have been working for 31 years in area of education, educating and from preschool to high school to university, trying to really teach people how to be resilient, how to have a sustainable life, how to work in the country. And as a result, thousands and thousands of those women who are right now advocates, who are running to the parliament, who are running as a governor, who are running as an ambassador, all of those people were the outcome of AIL. But the point is right now, what we are going to do right now, what we are about to do for the people of Afghanistan. We are concentrating all our effort how we are going to move people from one place to the next place. But 35 million people there are in the points of collapse. This
Thank
is
you
one
so
thing.
much. Thank you,
That is
Dr. Sakena. Thank you
just
very
one,
much.
Hibaaq.
Thank you very much
Just
indeed.
one
I think.
second.
Okay, if you could.
I think the international community owes to the people of Afghanistan to really stand beside them and help them right now, because the women of Afghanistan cannot be helped just the empty stomach and sick body and stop mind. So that's my point. Hugo, thank
you very much. I think the ambassador and
I think Dr. Sakena summed it up. So I would have probably said the same thing as she said. I think that probably the biggest nightmare would be if the status quo continues inside the country. If women and girls are still banned from school and education, if women are stopped from going to work, if the economic situation is as dire as it is, if the health situation is as difficult as it is, I think it's just unimaginable and extremely miserable to be in that situation inside the country.
Excellent. And Suwar and Rauzo, would you like to say something? We can go to the next question.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think both speakers covered it well. I think the fear is that the status quo continues, and you know, as we all mentioned earlier, you cannot have a country progressing with half of the population excluded. And I really hope that we can find a way to engage on the ground and be able to give women opportunities, and not just the women opportunities, but everyone else just a dignified life. Because the videos that come out of Afghanistan, the treatment of people, both men and women, this is not. It's tragic beyond any word that I can try to find. So I think finding a way to make sure that this doesn't become the status quo and the international community doesn't turn away.
You know what I want to hear from all of you. What is the one thing that the international community can do for girls, who still remain in Afghanistan? I think this we need to answer this question, because many people, really, everyone did not leave Afghanistan, and the ones that are left, the Taliban, are the ones that need to go to school. Women who want to, need to go to a doctor, they need to work, schools, and all of that. So, what do you think? What pressure can the international community can do? Because I think the good thing about the Skoll Foundation is people are here to see, what can we do? What can each of us do at the end of this panel and say, well, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and I'm going to. How do we pressure the U.S. government, administration, Congress, senators to pressure to come up with policies that will be that will make a difference in Afghanistan, whether it's releasing of the money, like some of you said, or other pressures. So what can we do? Any of you would answer. I think maybe we should start with Sawar. Sawar Suleiman?
Yes, sure. If you just give me 1 minute, there's an important message I would like to tell to my audience. I don't want to repeat what is already said. I would just like to remind us all of an important complementary of what other prospect speakers just asserted. It's a poem from Sadi Shekhar, a famous Afghan poet. One of poem is written on the United Nations wall. It says, human beings are body parts of each other. In creation, they are indeed of one essence. If a body part is affected with pain, other body parts uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human being, the name of human you shall not retain. The world bears responsibility about each other, and I believe Afghans are not excluded. We need to understand and acknowledge the gravity of the situation in Afghanistan, because as the poem suggests, it's not just the Afghans who suffer, but as a part of the same body, the whole world suffers. Thank you.
That's profound, and I love it. That's really great. I would like to, there is a question for Dr. Sakena. Dr. Sakena, how are you and how are your staff and how's your team navigating, the dangers of the Taliban's? Why, why they carry on, their work, opening more educational centers? I mean, how are you really navigating that? What are the possibilities, knowing that the Taliban are closing schools, not letting girls to go to school? How are you navigating that?
Thank you, Hibaaq, for asking this question. First of all, I would like to share with you that right now our schools are open, our centers are open. One of the reasons that they are open, because we did work under the Taliban, the time of the Taliban underground, and we learned how to work with them, negotiate with them, and try to keep the door of education open, because our mission was to educate the civil society. And now also we are working. We are going around changing our curriculum. For example, the curriculum of the Women Learning Center, we are shifting to science curriculum. We're putting the curriculum of the school into the center. We have 362 centers who are operating right now. In each center, we have from 1,500 to 3,000 women coming and going right now as I am talking to you. They are constantly working and they are getting education. So that is one thing. And second thing that the issue is that about the health system. Right now, as I said before, 262 hospital clinic has been closed. There are only few hospital and clinics is open. AOL has 8 clinics, 1 hospital is operating, and 3 more health centers. But the point is that there is not medicine. There is not enough medicine, and there is not enough personnel. Although we have all our personnel or women right now operating, we have women doctor, women vaccinator, but there is not enough because some of them run away and some of them are stay home and they don't have a job because we don't have a resource to give them a resource so they can come and work. And also we could open 10 more clinics right now because all the clinics are sitting empty and people are dying, but there is no operation. We could open the clinics if we have resource. So that is, I am trying to get to you guys that Afghanistan is right now is in dying process. People don't see that. Yes, there is a lot of news about a lot of other issues, but the big issue is that if you want the Afghanistan to have a stable life and be sustainable by themselves and have a health, we must reach for those people, create job, create education, create a health service that they will be able to function. Talking is just enough. I am so sick and tired of talking. I think that people has to realize during 20 years,
Thank you.
the same thing happened. The same thing those 20 years happened. The people who were suffering, the poor people, and still is that happening.
Thank you very much. I think I think what you are saying also is that money should be released so that it could be used for clinics and all that, or I would like to clarify that question. One, your schools are all right and you guys can work because you have really learned how to negotiate and how to work with how to sort of figure out how to work with I hate to say how to work with, but I mean how to work under the impossible circumstance that the Afghan girls and women are faced. So your school is open, and that's it. You just keep going and going and going and do whatever you need to do to to provide the education that you are for the girls. That's what you are saying, Dr. Sakena.
To be released. The money to be released to Afghanistan. The money goes of Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan are right now. That money doesn't go to the government. That money has to go to the people. People need that money to start this functioning.
So this is maybe one of the, what can the international community do, or what can Americans do? What you are saying is, start with lobbying to release money for Afghanistan. That's just one of, I think that's what I take from your discussion on this particular issue.
Do you know how hard is we send money to Afghanistan? Do you know how hard is it that we send money to Afghanistan? Every day, the other day, I go to the bank because we have to we spend 200,000 in just the last 10 days. It's been money for distribution, for food, for education. But this money cannot go through the system we were sending before. The things is blocked and not reached to the people. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. And of course, the ambassador said also, Islam is not against educating girls. So that's also another, issue that needs to be very clear. That it is not, education is not against Islam. And I think also that's maybe that's also deep down, maybe they know that. I have no idea, but certainly if this school can be your schools and centers are going on, then maybe we need to change communication with them. So the other issue is also you have to engage, and I think and that's I think what I'm hearing from also other panelists, and I would like to take that question back to the ambassador. What can the international community do? Ambassador Adila.
International community has various tools. It's when we talk about engagement, I think to be very frank, the engagement is continuing to happen, and the price is really paid by a regular Afghan inside the country that has been truly boycotted by the international community in terms of the isolation that the country is right now going. So the international community has one way that they could pressure Taliban is, of course, I think recognition matters for the Taliban a lot. And that's one element that the pressure could move forward. The second is also, I think it's extremely important to distinguish between the public and the leadership. If the pressure is on the leadership, I think there is a lot of support for it. But if the pressure is on the public, it's going to hurt a dire situation. It's going to hurt a very distracted and scattered society that has been impacted by long-term war and current economic situation. And I think the third element is also the economic development in the future that's going to go forward. There, on a positive side, there has been an interest by the leadership to look into that. And I think it's going to be extremely important that when the international community is engaging with Taliban, there is a very, very clear line that if they foresee themselves to be part of the world community, they must respect just simply what we have signed at the UN as part of a country that we had committed ourselves to certain human rights principles and regulations that we were, and a human rights body that we became part of it. And on parallel to this, I think Dr. Sakena has an extremely good example, and it happened 25 years ago too. I had a homeschool at the time, and I was teaching young girls just simply what I could do as a teenager, simply the first and the second, the third grade, not much beyond that, and simple literacy. There are still a lot of efforts in the ground, and that's part of the civil society, part of local NGOs in the ground that continue to work despite the very, very dire situation and difficulties they have. And simply looking into the practical terms, if they have limitations on having access to funding, that it will help them to pursue the great work they're doing. I think it's important to remember that, yes, there is a formal education system, but there is an informal education system that at least we must make sure that continues and that is protected from the Taliban from creating any bans on them. And it should not be only for elementary school, but we should really push for every single Afghan girl, regardless of the age, to be able to study to the highest level possible. And that includes universities too. And we must engage the Muslim Ummah and the Muslim community and OIC as well, that they need to take a really strong position, what Islam dictates in terms of right of education for girls and women.
Thank you very much indeed. There is a very interesting question from the audience, and I'm going to start asking the younger generation to answer this. And the question is from the audience: if you could, so this is to Arso and Suwar, and of course I will also come to the ambassador and Dr. Sakena. if you could choose to liberate, empower, or motivate a woman, what medium would you choose? For example, lifting her up through your writings, or maybe television programs, or how about sitting down with her one on one, just talking? So, Suwar, what would you say about that? How would you
I
answer this?
think I would choose the last option. I would sit with her and talk to her because that's the personally for me that's the best way of communicating with someone. Listening, I think listening is a very important part because when we listen to someone, that person like feels understood. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also a cultural thing, I think. I hope in other cultures that talking one on one, women trust each other and it's easier. I will give the same question to Arso.
Yeah, I would go with the same as Siwar mentioned, having a more individualized approach. I think the other mediums, sometimes we tend to develop a very standard and generic message and hope that it becomes relevant. But I think having that one-on-one dialogue in space to really understand and try to, and for someone to be understood is a very powerful thing.
Excellent. I would like to ask that question to Dr. Sakena.
Yes,
A question from the audience, and I would love to see how different generations answer this question. So the question, shall I repeat the question, or can you say it on the chat? The question is, Dr. Sakena, if you could choose to liberate, empower, or motivate a woman, what medium would you choose? For example, lifting her up through your writings, or maybe television programs, or how about sitting down with her one on one, just talking?
thank you, Hibaaq. I would like to share with you that already we are working young generation with each girls in, and that is the method that you are using. We sit with them one by one, and also we use television, and also we use a collective group discussion. And so it is a different method. It depends on the individual, how you do them and how do you work with them. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
I think I absolutely agree with the mediums that the respective panelists recommended, but I'm also thinking of a reflection of myself 25 years ago when I was in Afghanistan, and what could have motivated me when I simply school was not an option. And I didn't have the luxury even to be able to find somebody to sit with me one-to-one. And of course, it was my parents and my family and friends. But at these moments, you want to hear a new voice, a different voice. And that didn't exist. So to me, it really, and TV was not there. And I think right now we're facing the same type of scenario in Afghanistan as well. We see restrictions on media outlets. So I would say writing, and truly for me, it was the writing. I simply at the time, and I think for a lot of women and probably men as well, at the time we did not leave a single printed book or magazine or newspaper that was available at the time in the market. And if people remember, there used to be very small bookstores that started to rent books. It was not done alone. And we read every single material that was produced even before the time I was born, and whatever was available. And that lifted me up in terms of seeing that the world was not small, it was big, and life could still maybe meaningful, and there will be definitely a day of hope and light. And I just waited for that day to arrive.
It's like I said, it's also a cultural thing. I know in my own country, in Somalia, women tell each other, you're not supposed to talk about the problems in your life, because no one is supposed to know. Otherwise, you will not be a good woman. So what they did was they talked to each other, sat down, but they communicated in a poem. And that's exactly what they did. So sitting down, The minute you sit down with a woman, you relate to her. The minute that she tells you, you know, her problems and all that, there's something that just women basically relate to each other. But yeah, in the nomadic culture, you know, poems are absolutely used because people, you know, don't read or write, but this is really how they did. Wow, what a panel! I really had a ball, and I just love the engagement with you know, with the audience. This has been really wonderful. Thank you all for your incredible insights on the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan. Three things came out, you know, many, of course, suggestions were made, but I think the question of what can the international community do, the fact that we have 4 Afghan women who all believe that engagement is important, not because it's the best way to deal with, but that the way the situation is, that engaging the Taliban is important, release of the funds is important because it's the ordinary people that are suffering. Is very important. Of course, women playing a vital role because women are the best crisis managers, and any society, any government, or any society that, you know, that is supportive, if they are not supporting their women, you know that, you know, society is not going anywhere. So I think it's whatever engagement that, you know, takes place, it's very important that women are the front and center of those discussions, and that women actually participate. So I think there is a leverage that the West has. And at the same time, you know, we have to think of the 38 million or so Afghans. So I think that that itself is something to think about. In terms of, I know when panels happen, it's like, what can I do? Well, this is definitely what you can do. Political engagement, releasing of the, you know, of the money. That's what, you know, the 4 Afghan women are telling us, and of course the women also to be at the center and front of these discussions. So, as we have seen today, again, the Skoll community is the most incredible and dynamic group of leaders and change makers. So, to conclude today, I would like to invite each of our speakers to give an example. That's exactly how we began. We said we would like them to give us an example of what the audience would do. So, that's the 3 things that they have already told us. So, thank you for these incredible suggestions. It has been a wonderful learning experience for me today. Incredible honor to speak with you all and to be part of this panel. I want to thank our wonderful speakers, our incredible and engaged partners here with us today. Thank you to Ruby and Philip and her amazing colleagues at the Skoll Foundation for their brilliant work bringing this panel together today. This is only the first day of the Skoll Forum, and there are, of course, so many great events to come. More discussions starting right now after this one, more network opportunities, and I hope to see you all over the course of the forum. And I should have said to my colleagues and others who are celebrating Ramadan Mubarak to all of you. Thank you very much. It has been fun to be part of this.
Thank you, Hibaaq. And I just wanted to add one thing on the money. I think it's extremely important, as we said, that that the distinction has to be that it must go to the people of Afghanistan. And I think there are conflicting views and different views on how it has to be released. And I think my personal perspective is that I'm not even referring in terms of the release, I'm referring in terms of humanitarian aid. So my position is that humanitarian aid must go to Afghanistan, and it must go to the people of Afghanistan, and women must be the beneficiaries, and civil society should be part of it. And the discussion on the broader policy level with Taliban must be on the girls' education. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.